Hey, it's time to take a gander at some more lovely robots. I don't know what accent this is, it's a little bit northern, it's a little bit Yorkshire. I'm losing track of it. I hope you all saw my lovely unboxing of Dirt Boss. I'm going to get to him a little bit later because chronological order is something I try to maintain in these videos. And before I actually got Dirt Boss, I went to a Toys R Us and managed finally to see all the new lovely RGW Deluxes, which don't actually look that lovely in person. But of course I couldn't walk out of there without buying one, and I spent quite a while just sort of stood there thinking, well, which one do I want? Strangely, there are no bumblebees there. Not a single one. Just loads of Orion Paxes, a few Megatrons and like 2 Trail Cutters, and I thought, better get a Trail Cutter because he seems to be the one that's selling the best. But I just looked at it and thought, I really don't know. I wanted a figure that would be a bit more fun, and I went with a gut feeling that Orion Pax would provide me with a little bit more fun. I don't know really what to say about this figure. It is good and it's sort of bad, and I don't know, that there are things I like about it and then things I don't really like about it, and they seem to balance each other out, so I have a completely neutral opinion on this figure. It's nice. Look at it from an objective standpoint, it's a very good figure. It's extremely poseable, just joints out the wazoo. You can get this guy into any pose you would imagine. You know, he's got a waist swivel, his head's on a ball joint, his shoulders will go everywhere. He's even got wrist swivel, and I really wasn't expecting that because of the way his hands sort of fold into these massive cavities in his forearms. I thought it would just be a hinge there and that would be all you got, but no, they spin, and it just sort of feels like, well, if you're going to cut corners, Hasbro, and make figures smaller and flimsier, like this guy is, I mean, it is pretty solid, but I mean, listen to that, he makes a horrible shaky wheel noise that sort of signifies that a figure is a bit cheap. And I can't help but think this guy just isn't value for money. And if you are going to cut those corners, make something cheaper, why not cut this one and just have that being a ball joint instead of being 2 joints? I really don't understand Hasbro's thought processes sometimes, but there we go. So all in all, yeah, this is a good robot mode for an Orion Pax figure. I just don't understand why it is this robot mode. Because when you take into account that this is meant to be based on the RGW comics, this body only appeared once in Spotlight Blur before they did the Spotlight Orion Pax that was made for this figure to go in with this figure in countries which aren't the UK, because over here you don't get the comic pack in. I'm okay with that because then I don't have a duplicate of a comic I've already got separately that came out months ago. So yeah, this is a bit of a weird sort of erroneous look for Orion Pax, because most of the time he appears in comics, he looks just like Optimus Prime, but he's maybe a little bit less beefy. I can sort of see where Hasbro were going. That they wanted a figure that looked a lot different to Optimus Prime. It was a sort of logical devolution from that. He's got a face, his head sculpt's really nice actually, it's got the sort of chin strap beginnings of a mouth plate. Yeah, he's got just one window on his chest, and I don't know, he's just a sort of slightly smaller robot, but he's still red and blue, so you can see that this guy would eventually turn into Optimus Prime. The weapons are so G1, I mean, especially his gun. I mean, look at that. It's the most G1 weapon I've ever seen. It sort of doesn't fit with the style of this figure, and it just looks like it could have come off of a third-party thing. It's still good though, I guess. It's good to give it to other Optimus Primes so they have a nice fat gun to play with. And then of course he has a nice axe, which is this lovely dark orange, and it's just a nice weapon. It's long and it fits in his hand really well because you've got a sort of, the end of it is slightly thinner, and then there's a slightly fatter bit that actually sort of grips the 5mm hole of his fist. It's just nice. Again, that's another nice sort of thing to give to other Optimus Prime so they have a proper axe. So it's a bit weird that you've got this figure that is Optimus Prime before he's Optimus Prime, but comes with the most appropriate Optimus Prime weapons of any figure ever. Oh yeah, Orion Pax is, I don't know, I'm happy with him because it's a nice new figure. I probably would have liked Trail Cutter more in the end, I guess, but he didn't come with two really good weapons, and you can just sort of pose him really nilly, and this guy just looks good in any pose you put him in. I guess part of that is because he follows the sort of Optimus Prime archetype, as this is the only RUW Deluxe one I've got. It feels okay that it doesn't really have to fit with anything else. It doesn't really have to do anything else but be a standalone figure of a sort of Optimus Prime. Because when you've got that sort of, I guess it's something I felt about previous deluxe Optimus Prime figures. There's a sort of iconic nature to any sort of Optimus Prime figure that means you can sort of have it as a standalone toy, and you could have one without having any other Transformers and it'd be perfectly cool. So I guess as Orion Pax being my first one of these figures, it's okay. I can take it as it is without having to compare it to anything else, because I believe once you do compare it to anything else, it's a bit like what? Because the Bumblebee figure is bigger than this guy, and I've got to say, yeah, the main gripe is he's so small. This noggin he's got, I'm sure I've got Scout figures that have got bigger heads than that, and that tells you how small these figures are getting. And if you hold this up to something like Beast Hunter's Laserback, you consider that they both come out in the same year, they're both the same price, you can see which line gives you better value for money. Generations just is not economically viable. It's just, oh dear. And it's a shame, because that's really where the most exciting figures are coming from. So to form some sort of last bit of final thought, some sort of summary on Orion Pax, he's good if you want an Orion Pax. If you're a big Optimus Prime fan, you probably want him. Dave will probably want one. If you need to have something new to go on your Prime shelf that is a little bit different, then definitely this guy's worth it. But there's a lot of stuff that just sort of feels like they really should have tried harder. Because with this, if you're trying to replicate a comic design, and you look at the design that happens to come up once in a comic, and you don't really replicate that very well, it's like, well, what's the point? And what I mean when I say that is, there's a lot of stuff on this figure that really, they haven't really tried to bother with even making it look comic accurate. The legs are completely sort of wrong. There shouldn't be anything red there. There should be wheels on the sides. His legs basically shouldn't be made at the front of the vehicle. The wheels that end up at a weird angle on his back should be on his hips. I don't know what these weird things on his arms are that end up being like fins on the back of his alt mode. Maybe they just put them there to cover up his arms because they just sit at the back of the sort of weird truckish thing that he is. As they decide to slap some jet wing fins on there, maybe just to cover him up. I don't know. This is all bringing me to the fact that the vehicle mode for this figure is basically an afterthought. You never see this body transform in the comics. And I really hope that the vehicle mode that they took was based on some sort of initial design that Casey Collar, the artist who originally drew this body in Spotlight Blur, sort of designed. Because if you end up with a figure that's essentially designed by two different people, that's not going to be awesome, really, is it? It's safe to say, though, without faffing about and transforming this, yeah, the transformation is quite clever, but it is still a little bit of a faff here and there. Not a lot of the stuff really pegs in very well when it's a weird truck thing. But yeah, it's a weird truck thing. It's only got four wheels. It looks a bit like Cup. I can see, though, where they were going with the sort of Cup look, because it's a strange sort of reference. The only other Orion Pax toy was a G1 repaint of Cup. So I guess there's a connection there that is worthy. It doesn't really look Cybertronian enough. It looks a little bit 30s. It looks not very powerful, and it just seems to be a sort of odd downgrade of a sort of Optimus alt mode, because it should really have still been a truck with 6 wheels that just look maybe a little bit less beefy. I'm not sure what an Orion Pax should look like when it's transformed, but it doesn't really feel right. Whew! Ranting about that lovely new bit of plastic aside, yeah, let's just move on. I mean, so many weird different opinions I've got on that Orion Pax. I probably could have sat here for even longer just ranting on about it, and you don't want to hear that. My best recommendation is go and look at it for yourself. Go to a Toys R Us, pick it up, an R over it like I did, and if you eventually decide on it, you'll probably enjoy it, yeah. But to me, a hardened IDW comic reader who has been there since Infiltration issue 0, I don't really see what is so great about this figure, or to be honest, now after having a closer look at all of the figures in the line in general, because while it's great that they are the first figures of IDW designs, they are cutting so many corners of those designs to make them look a bit more like sort of normal classics figures that people who haven't read the comics can look at and go, oh yeah, new Trailbreaker, and buy. I'd just rather they were really slavish depictions of how they look on the page, because those designs are so cool and the artists just do a really good job. And it seems like, you know, what will Casey Collar think of this? His design in plastic, but then it's not his design in plastic. So, let's stop talking about that. So, Dirt Boss, you all saw my lovely unboxing. I was really proud with that video. As I was putting that together, it was like, yeah, this is going to be a classic in the making. It's all really good, and I managed to make it quite entertaining. And I was happy with that, and very happy with Dirt Boss. Yeah, it's just a lovely monster truck. I mean, look at that. I love the colours and the shape. Oh, look at this thing. It's so nice. It's all sort of angular. I really like the roof section. All the silver on there, and there's even like an interior, if you can see through this ruby coloured windscreen. I like the detailing. The little grills on the top. The Decepticon symbol is perfect. There's really nothing I can point out with this figure that is really a gripe. Maybe it'd be nice if they painted the engine block silver. It's just a win. Very, very nice. In robot mode. His arms and legs are a little bit weedy for a guy who should be a sort of thug, but it's really good. It's just such a nice sort of quintessential Cybertron figure, and it is a shame that it's never been sort of done again, because as it is, it can become really hard to get hold of one, and I'd recommend going for a hunt, but you know, you've got to be prepared to shell out a little bit more money for a figure that is a bit older, so it won't be quite up to scratch with today's standards. But I don't care, it's lovely, isn't it? This is just one excellent disco funk groovatron of a robot. It is just funk all the day long, getting down with the boogie, and I can go on and make a few more disco related puns, but I don't think I really need to. Yeah, so it can look a little bit garish. There is a lot of stuff hanging off his back. I don't care, because it just looks so good. It's hard to describe, but the angles in this chest piece is perfect. His face is a little bit odd. He hasn't got any light piping, even though his eyes are the same see-through red that the wheels and everything's made out of. But it's a boss of a figure. And then, as if those two lovely things weren't enough, I suddenly decided to go and spend more money on plastic this week, because Tesco's have got another massively reduced Beast Hunters sale stuff. Well, not massively reduced, it's sort of like 25% off, but everything is reduced, even their exclusive Predacons Rising stuff. And I looked at a lot of it and thought, oh, what should I get? And then realised that the offer's on till October, so I thought, yeah, I'll just wait and just grab a Windrazor. It does sort of irk me a bit to go and spend more than like £10 on a figure. Orion Pax was a special case because it's rare now that I'm going to get to a Toys R Us. So when you're confronted with a whole wall display of lovely stuff in Tesco, and you're like, oh god, I really can't justify spending this at the moment, I just thought it best to walk out with another little Terracon. At first I was a bit like, oh, he's not quite as good as Twin Strike or Hunger, but he is. I think all of these Terracons end up going to be just up there with the best Legion class figures ever made. It's just so good. Yes, it's nice. Detailing is really good. The transformation is a little bit more involved than you expect. And just sort of get a good looking figure in both modes. Robot mode he's a little bit skinny. His legs are really sort of long and thin and perfectly straight, which makes it a little bit annoying that he doesn't have any knees. But it's just nice. The colours are a little bit odd. Beige and green. It's not the most appealing looking robot. But at the same time, all the detailing just makes it look, yeah, cool. And the wingspan on it is insane once it's a sort of pterodactyl thing. So you certainly get your money's worth, and when you only pay $3.75 for it as opposed to a $5, it makes it even more satisfying. This is the first of these little crossbow things I've got, and it's not bad. I mean, it's not as good as the little Gears of War Lancer that the other ones come with, but it's different. And this is just a very nice little beast mode. There's no robot stuff apart from his hands right next to his beast mode hand, which looks a bit odd. I would really like these to just tuck away somewhere or get hidden, maybe another joint to have the wings fold on top. That's the only gripe, because this is an excellent sort of pterodactyl themed, I don't know, wyverny dragon thing. Yeah, I like it. Can I get Ripper, Snapper and Blight now, please? Because they seem to be absolutely nowhere on this hemisphere, and I really want to complete an Abominus without having to buy the see-through 5-pack that's in Tesco. So there you have it. 2 legitimately excellent figures and one quite sort of questionable one that is actually very good if you step back. Yes, that's been the week that was in plastic. Yeah, the weather's really horrible. It's starting to get a little bit depressing that it's September and I still don't have a job or anything to do. But anyway, stay tuned for more. I've said that in like every video recently. I still got to do the review I've got lined up that went a bit funny. Apart from that, I can't really say that the lovely regularity with which I've been doing Twit recently will continue, because I don't know when I'll be next buying something. I shouldn't really be buying anything still, but maybe I'll be able to net something else in Tesco's next week. Guess you just have to wait and see. Sound off, soldier!